Welcome, everybody. Welcome, brother Merlin, to Unspeakable Bliss. This is episode number 43, believe it or not. And I'm joined today by Marcus-Merlin Hinds, a magician, a wizard, the Matthew McConaughey of the Costa Rican jungle.
I forgot about that. That's funny.
Thanks for being on. Appreciate you.
Thank you. It's funny because I've gotten Matt McConaughey a few times and I resist it because I'm like, he's amazing. And and then I see that that's a symbol for a multi-dimensional creature that has a similar voice tone that I do.
I
Yeah.
remember when I first, what you're probably talking about is when I first met Merlin, he was on the side of the road, like digging or something. And this was right when I moved to Costa Rica 3 years ago. I'm just like, damn, who's that dude? I want to be friends with that guy. He just seems cool as fuck and looks like Matthew McConaughey, except Costa Rican edition.
The Costa Rica edition. I like it. I like it. Yeah, well, thank you for taking the time to block out and um, capture this conversation, making time in your day, and for all the other conversations that you have with other people around people's passions, people's whatever they're up to in the world, and yeah, and just being the kind of person who cares about people's lives and what they're up to capture the magic, to pass it on. It's like I guess this digital world is almost like an ancient. Oh, my pancakes just arrived. Thank you, brother. Appreciate you. It's like the new age. Oh, I just want to share my pancakes. Look at this jungle pancakes. Ooh, it's like it's scribing. It's scribing for the modern day cave people. So now we're scribing to document things for history so that people can see it. That's fun. Speaking and being in a way that in 50 years from now, our kids will be showing it to their kids. This is what my grandpa was about.
If we make it. If humanity's around and if we've somehow figured out how to access this, that's why I worry about the internet stuff. I'm like, man, when they find like paintings and cave artwork, I'm like, they were carving it in stone, but where's this gonna go?
Well, interesting that you said that because they were carving it in stone. And when you go to all of these places, most of the juiciest stuff has been recarved out and pulled away, and they only put in museums what they want to share.
Right.
And then we look online, and some things that hit a hot button, a certain message, they get pulled off right away.
Yeah, this is like a whole rabbit hole. I'll share this with you, and then I have a specific question. Yesterday, for about 2 hours, maybe 3 hours, I just got immersed in this book called No Place to Hide. And it's by Edward. You remember Edward Snowden, with the NSA, National Security. What does the A stand for? Anyway, this dude worked for the CIA, and it came out that the NSA was documenting all emails, all phone calls. This is ironic as I'm doing this over Zoom. Hi, CIA. Hey, NSA. They were just pulling daily billions of phone calls without any suspicion or reason. And it was just blowing my mind the level of an infringement on the Fourth Amendment that is. So like, yet here we are using the very medium to share this message.
Which is interesting because, and I guess we'll dive into this flow. The end game of using these mediums and where we can go with connecting light workers, the way the Druids, the Magi, the way the ancient light worker tribe formed. We can use these mediums to put out content that triggers no words and no no words and no energy, so there's no reason to pull it. And it's like encrypting, because sometimes propaganda is encrypted messages that have another message that cause usually a dark energy. So let's call it a negative propaganda.
Mm-hmm.
Could we be giving propaganda of love that's got hidden encrypted love messages that you can only feel if you're in the vibration of love, such that when it's being documented and listened to, it's like, oh, it's another one of those love messages. Send it on, send it on. I don't even know what they're saying, but you know, right? Aunt Sia, right? Aunt Sia has amazing things to share, right? And it's like, so this, it doesn't bump up against. It's like if you got a bear in the woods and he's sleeping, you're not gonna stomp out loud and like, hey bear, I'm in the jungle here. You're probably gonna walk a little quietly and go off in the distance. There's no reason to wake up a sleeping bear. Hopefully it's playful and cute and just wants some of your honey, but just on the cautious side, no reason to wake up the bear. The same kind of concept for what we're doing and what we're up to, and documenting ceremonies, retreats that have forgiveness, the different things that we're doing that makes a difference, bringing people back to love. We can do it in a very encrypted way, such that only those that are listening from love can receive the message. I feel like that's the way to connect with the leaders, the next of kin leaders, right? Like I feel like everything I'm doing is to have collected all the information in the universe. The Mayan sign of the magnetic hand is to collect all the information in the universe, whatever was calling out to me ever since I was young, pull it together to share it, to pull it together, to share it with those that are in need or have the calling. And that way we're creating a powerful tribe of light workers. And the reason why I use the name Merlin, it came to me when I was a kid. It left in my middle years. It came back to me when I was older. Merlinius showed up in the Dark Ages in Europe at multiple times when powerful kings were needed of guidance. They needed guidance to fight off dark forces, to fight off tribes that were just attacking and raiding and marauding. And they formed groups, and they formed a kingdom around protection, love, and so Merlinius showed up at dark times to guide kings to the light. And he shows up in history in a few different eras. One was in the Dark Ages, around 1400s, I believe, of Europe was one era he's there. And if everything we're doing, if we're bringing people back to love, people getting along in harmony, like we see the trees and the forest and in the jungle doing, and we can come back to that place where we're so pure. Hey, I've got some water. I don't need it all. Here's some for you. I noticed that you could use some. And we come in balance the way the forests do. We just observe, bringing the human side of permaculture to everything we do. That we can connect with the next generations, the next leaders of the world. The big vision is going back to village life. I feel that coming from the city was to put us in a compound, Babylon, Europe, 20% poverty. Poverty meaning you didn't have food for that day unless you had food given to you. A whole different definition. So probably 50% poverty for what we would consider realistic. 20% of people in Rome didn't have food past that day. The next day they didn't know what they were going to eat. So it was a different definition. And we moved to a place of villages the way we were meant to live, with master and apprentice model, learning a profession, earning abundance, doing what we love, surrounded by love, food, shelter, and water, having a profession to ground in our purpose, so that we have a village of people that have sacred bonds with love and connection, and their cups are full. And then those sacred bonds can create a community or a village of sacred bonds, sacred unions of connection, love, food, water, shelter, all with full cups. Now a whole community with full cups of love, food, shelter, water, inside their purpose, root chakra grounded, they're safe, they have a home, all their needs are met. That community can now play on a world level. And that's the only way that a community can play on a world level, is if everyone's cup's full. And with village life and enough villages throughout the world, this is how we can bring whatever takes place, what's going on in this year to come. If enough of us powerful leaders focus on coming together, playing together, creating villages, and creating a village that's designed for the next generation. We still have a lot to work through with this generation. Anybody that's 18 to 80. And the villages in the future, the kids can be born into a different creation. And with these villages around the world, the next generation and the generation after that can start to merge back into one. And the leaders around the world that would vote for wars and chaos to take place, for how to make trillions of dollars on forced medicine, and different things that we've seen taking place, that the only way to shift that is to shift it with love and giving a choice. I know in my life, I wasn't always who I am now. And when I felt the impact of my actions on others, and it made an impact that didn't feel good, only when I was able to put myself in their shoes, somebody who I loved as a person, and then allow myself to feel what they're feeling based on my actions, did I choose to shift that and let that go and promise to never be that way again to them or others. Coming back to love between me and that person. And then learning to be complete and forgive and bring love between me and all people in my life. It was at a choice. And it was choosing that feeling of love versus any other feeling: resistance, anger, jealousy. Buddha called it the three poisons: anger, greed, jealousy. Those are three very common ones. Those don't feel good. That's the path of resistance, and we can feel that they don't feel good. The path of love and compassion and forgiveness, it seems like it could be a big deal because we're not practiced at it. It's not a culture. It's a culture that we've been given to separate, to hold grudges. It's on TV. This politician's angry at this one. Democrats versus Republic. Different countries have different things, and everything's been programmed in to separate and judge and keep that in that polarity. Looking at my life, I was only able to shift out of choice because it felt good to come back to love. Eco villages around the planet, living and walking that walk, the next generation, the leaders above, the rich countries that haven't let go of the strings: Portugal, Spain, France, Romania, Austria. I can list all the big ones. They're still there. They're just not on TV. Turkish Empire, like the fall of Rome, where those leaders went. We can track where those leaders went when the Rome fell. Turkish Empire, then Germany, Britain was Western Roman Empire. We can see the split and follow the lines of the powers. Those haven't disappeared. They're just silently there, moving things. And if we have enough documents like what you're up to, retreats that leave people a different experience, leaders coming together and creating villages, not focusing on the I or what's best for me or what's best for this person. This doesn't serve me. This doesn't serve all this. This doesn't serve me. I don't feel it. I'm not this. That's what's cutting us off from coming together as a powerful we. And that's what will be really easy for the leaders above to come and draw lines that, okay, well, you're here, you're there, just keep separating because we've allowed ourselves to separate from one another. So of course we're going to let someone else separate us. And the only way to shift back is for us to come together for this powerful we, so the next generations experience it. And the documentaries and things that are alive on social media, it's being monitored. Let's have it be monitored on purpose, so that when it's read, it's like, ooh, that gives me this fuzzy feeling. So the leaders above, their next generation can see and feel what it's like to observe a cacao ceremony with connection and love being present, a forgiveness retreat where a daughter or a husband and wife forgive each other and create friends, so that their kids can see what it looks like to come together in love, separate energetically, still in love as friends, and the kids can see that no matter what happens in a relationship, you're going to have a friend and you're going to have love in. You just might not stick together, and you can forgive and create magic and love. And they can see these things, and I feel that that's what will shift the leadership above. I know I went on a lot there. It came to me when we talked about being documented by Uncle Sia or Aunt Sia and this and that, and we can actually use it for our advantage if we're clear on what is taking place. We can actually use it. We can use it for a positive intention.
Well, there's a lot of different directions we can go from this place. However, I'm going to do one of my favorite things, which is to go into the mind's eye of the listener. And I imagine what some people might be wondering is, how did you go from your previous life, which I know was, as a successful, by many standards, real estate agent, to where you're at now? Like, how did you arrive at having this kind of a worldview? And more specifically, how did you arrive in this moment with me here on this Unspeakable Bliss podcast, while you're at the land that you're stewarding in Costa Rica, creating these streets and creating, like, how'd you get here, my brother?
Yeah, thank you. And feel free to course correct if I feel like I go off on a tangent and you want to align to a question. Maybe you can feel free to say, let's speak more into that, and then I will move energy towards that. And so I feel like sharing a little bit of my background. I was born in Southern California, and my mom disconnected from who she was with and moved into Central California to put herself in a healthier environment. So my mom raised 4 kids in the country of Central California, a little farmer town. And I learned pitching in, I learned responsibility, I learned to take care of my brothers and sisters. And we grew up in poor towns in California, which is the poor towns in, what's that? 2 brothers and a sister, so 3 total. So the 4 of us, we grew up in the poor side of town, and which means that we managed different kinds of energies in more of a ghetto living scenario, with I would say more violence, more aggression, more unhealthy communication habits than ones would experience in other sides of town.
How poor? Can you, because people mean different things when they say poor, I'm really curious what level.
Yeah. Okay. So here's a visual. Once a month, the government gives poor families who don't have enough means food. And we would be in line. It would be me and my oldest brother at this time. And we would be in line to help my mom receive the monthly rations, which was like this block of cheese, some loaves of bread. So when I say poor, we had government money and government food that was distributed out, and we would wait in line around this block. And I remembered it being kind of embarrassing for me. And yet I was supporting mom. I do remember there's something there. So there's a line of people wrapped around this block receiving their government rations. Because in the system, if my mom was to go to work and make, let's say back then, $1,000 a month, and that they were going to give her 1,000, then she would work all month, and then that extra 1,000 they would take away her offerings from the government. So it was like a wash. And when raising kids, a single parent, it's this loop of not able to climb and see out. That makes me want to offer more to single parents. I always do something, and yet I don't know if I echo it loud enough, and that's bringing something up. So also there was different like uncles, that we call them uncles. It was masculine around that would come, be around and help out around the house and do things and help and support. And one of them would go into dumpsters behind the big grocery stores, because if everything goes past a certain date, then they just throw it out in a big dumpster. So if you go into a dumpster in a big grocery store and it's like, oh, we got to throw this away, they literally chuck the whole packages in dumpsters. And so he would go and collect a bunch of stuff out of dumpsters and bring breads and different things to us, and that would be part of it. That would be part of the food supplies, and then different people would offer different bulks of food supplies to help pitch in. And between all of that, that's how our food came. So pretty poor.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Wow.
As poor as you can get. I never had a new pair of clothes until I was 13. There was a road trip we went to go. So we grew up really poor. Later in my life, I learned who my real dad was. It wasn't the man who raised me. It was another man. And when I learned who my real dad was, let me back up. I was talking about a new pair of clothes. I hadn't had a new pair of clothes until I was old enough to work and earn some money and pitch in and help buy a new pair of clothes. I was about 11 or 12 years old. And I would work on the weekends and help collect funds to be able to buy some clothes. Later in my life, I learned how to work really hard for my, let's call it poor dad, right? The rich dad, poor dad. I had a stepdad and I had a blood dad. My poor dad was my stepdad, and he taught me the flooring business, in which I moved to Hawaii in 1994 and learned how to install flooring. So I learned carpet, vinyl, and tile, restoring the island after a hurricane had wiped out about 1/3 of the island. A lot of people moved there to help restore the island, to get families back into their homes. We were living in parks, Red Cross, and like rented lands. And I lived in a community in 1994 where a group of us would group together, and 5 or 6 people would help build a cabin, and 2 people would stay in that little cabin. And then the group would build another one for 2 people, another one, until everybody had a bed. So we grouped together, we created a little village and lived in a community in 1994. And with that, learned the flooring business, in which, learning and knowing who my blood dad was, I was requested by my mom and introduced to him to move in and get to know him in 1990, end of 95, in which I'd be 15 and a half. And with that, I started a flooring business in Northern California. At 16 years old, I had saved up money and bought a car. A week before I was 16, I had an El Camino. And both of my dads had promised to match whatever money I saved. And 2 weeks before I was 16, I managed to save up $1,500, which in 1995 is a good amount of money. So I'm 2 weeks before 16, I'm shopping for a car. Turns out neither one of my dads had the money. So all I had for this car was $1,500, which means instead of I wanted a 71 Chevelle or a 71, 72 El Camino, it was the Chevy that really caught my eye. So instead of the one with a paint job and the new tires and everything finished for the 5,000 price range, everything decked out.
Right.
I could only afford the one that needed some body work. It was a primer and the engine needed tune up, but it was a strong runner. So I bought an El Camino, and my dad bought me a toolbox, which is the only thing that he's ever bought me in my life, is an actual toolbox.
Your blood father.
Blood dad, yeah. So he bought me a toolbox, and hi Kuda, you were running and you weren't supposed to. So he bought me a toolbox and taught me how to help me fix up the car. So I adjusted the head, calibrated everything, had it purring, And that was my first vehicle, in which I would work my way through college with the flooring business, installing carpet out of my El Camino, and working my way in high school. And then later on, starting a business by 19, Magic Flooring, in which I would work my way through college and earn enough money to buy my first real estate investment. In 1999, I was 21 years old, and I got into real estate. And a year and a half later, the year 2000, 2001, I bought my first home at 22 years old. And from then, I was fixing up, remodeling homes, and realized that I appreciated helping people find their home and making them happy, and that real estate was very easy for me. So I had a flooring business at one point, in which people would go and do the work 2 or 3 days a week, and I had a team. So I had a real estate business, a flooring business with a van and all the tools, and installers working with me. At 21 years old, I got into real estate and was doing real estate in the evenings. After installing flooring during the day, I would go sell real estate at night. And then college 2 days a week, in which every Saturday was dedicated to studies, and then Sunday was catch-up time and whatever else I could do. And so I had about an 80-hour plus week from 18 years old till about 22, 23. I would put in about 80 hours a week, which was really perfect, because who I was then was, let me see, does that even make sense to share? I'll just say that sometimes, Kuda, this is technology, and I'm on the phone. This is my pup. She wants to say hi. I love you, and I'll say hi later, okay? Thank you for coming and saying hi again. So that would keep me out of trouble. Long story short, this would keep me out of trouble staying this busy. And to curb my interest in aggressive activities, I joined a boxing gym, and I would go into the boxing gym and spar and work out and train from about 23, 24, which would give me a lot of a very healthy place to release energy for a masculine that comes from a past that would release that energy in unhealthy ways sometimes. So boxing gym was a beautiful healing space for me, and worked my way through college with the flooring business. At one point had all three: college, flooring, and real estate. Then I sold the flooring business, stayed with real estate, focused on real estate. In 2010, I had put 10 years into real estate, which I felt like I had mastered all that the teachers could teach me for the most part in the area. So I started my own company, Hinds Realty Group. And with that company, in the recession, I would create $1 million real estate company 3 years later. And with that, leveraged a team of 17 people, and allowed me to focus on investment. I helped my mom invest. One of my biggest dreams first was to help my mom retire. First, buy a home with a white picket fence, California dream, and then be able to retire early. So I helped my mom buy a home, a rental, and then retire early. So she was able to retire at like 56, 57 years old and not have to worry about taking care of herself. After taking care of mom and making sure that she was set up, she had money coming in, she had a safe place with no bills and land that she could grow food in when she's ready, that the next step for me was to take care of me and focus on putting myself where I'm meant to be. And I had started taking a landmark course at 33 years old. So that would have been 12 years ago. And finding my path to purpose, to my spiritual beliefs, that was the first question. Everything was going great in my life, and I had done this business mind mapping plan of your life, and everything was great, except for the area where it was like, what's your spiritual beliefs? And how spiritually strong do you feel you are on a 1 to 10? And I was like, whoa, okay. At that point, the only spiritual connection that I thought I had was that when I have a child, that would ground me to the earth and spiritually connect me to everything going on that I don't know. I just knew that when I had a child, that was going to be my spiritual connection to everything. That's where I was in that moment. Anything else I didn't know. And so I started to go to retreats. I started to go to transformational events. I started to go and seek out and share with people what was going on in my life and where would they suggest that I go to transform certain things. And I was guided to Buddhism, to landmark, to healing ceremonies, medicine ceremonies, and just following this path of taking care of my body, taking care of myself, mastering forgiveness, letting things go, bringing compassion in. And that would be my journey for 10 years. At a later date, my blood dad passed away, which really ignited me to see firsthand that tomorrow's not promised. It was no longer a bumper sticker. And am I doing what I'm meant to do with my time and with my life? I would spend a few more years after my dad died in 2013, focusing on money, on finishing my business portfolio, moving myself out, and investing strategically to have passive investments so that I could have the investments provide what I didn't have when I was younger, was the ability to have substantial income, taking care of myself now in the future, and having the energy and the experience in life to go and give back and offer people a space, a mindset, an opportunity to have their dreams fulfilled in this life. And yeah, and I didn't know what I was going to be offering. And what had started to take place was I was doing my own inner reflection, and I was going to retreats. And sometimes I would be at retreats and I would see the communication between two creators be off, or I would see somebody in the retreat having like an argument conversation with somebody who I could feel they had a lot of love for, and the way they were speaking wasn't coming from love, and there was tension and arguing. And I started to pick up on things. And I was at a retreat in Lake Atitlan, and I saw what was going on between two facilitators and somebody in the retreat talking to someone in their life. And so I just started talking with them and checking in on how I can help. It turns out that forgiveness and communication tools that allows humans to get complete, which means between us and another human, whatever needs to take place to remove out of what's in the way of nothing but love being present. If we're fully complete with somebody, there's nothing but love, respect, and affinity in between us and them. So I put together a daily, like a play shop around forgiveness and communication and completion. I thought that a few people who I had talked to would come because they were like, yeah, if you do that, I would love to stay. It turns out that 13 people showed up for a forgiveness play shop one day, which led to me offering a 2-day retreat, one around forgiveness, one around connecting to your purpose. What are you going to do with that energy now that we've let go of what's been stopping us, was the concept. And from there, I realized that was the gift that I had picked up that I can give back to the world, was a mastery of forgiveness, connection to purpose. And that would evolve into what is now a 12-day full drop-in retreat experience, which tracks my life of coming from poor, forgiving the past, forgiving my dad and my mom for not letting me know who my real dad was, for the stories that I made up about mom, the stories that I made up about dad, the things that I had held on to, for fully forgiving and loving who they are and being a thank you. Forgiveness is one piece. to be nothing but love and compassion and affinity between us and another person. It was to find the thank you. So it's like almost like somebody who we love is near us, not just, yeah, I forgive them, but no, thank you. Like, here's my hand. Can we sit closer? Like, thank you. So being the thank you for them. And then reconnecting to my inner child, reconnecting to my purpose allowed me to really have this heaven yes energy such that everything that I do is in line with my purpose. And if it's, and the align with my purpose and such that there's infinite energy. In a heaven yes energy, there's infinite. It's like, I'm excited to do it. While continuing the path of forgiveness and completion is also learning that sometimes what stops the heaven yes is our ego, our identity, something in the way. I'm afraid to play. What if I'm not good enough? All these other things. So it's been a constant discovery to get to the layers of these stories. We remove a story and then we go deeper into our life or closer in relationships, and then down below it is another layer of the story at times. So still unfolding that, I believe, is a life journey. And where I'm at now is manifested my dream, and I'm walking in my dream. I'm living in Costa Rica on 7 acres of land that grows the most exotic fruits and has some of the cleanest water in the world. I'm guiding people through basically my life's journey of what got me here, and giving all the tools away that got me where I'm at, from being poor to forgiveness to connection of inner child to connection of purpose, then the technology to create teams in multiple countries and have multiple teams going on where I don't have any fear of money or where it's coming from, because I've reprogrammed money to work for me. So money and teams and technology works for me. I'm not under the thumb of anything. And I always saw things differently, and I was able to alchemize the way I saw it in my favor, and leveraging off of systems, amazing people, and the system itself of money, and actually programming it to play in my favor, which is now able to help out with a local school here, have funds to help with a playground here in the mountains, and do a bunch of amazing things such that people can come and have a transformational experience, which includes a community project where people don't have to just pay a good amount of high rent and then learn these different life skills. They can actually pay with their time and some fiat, because I don't have to do things for cash so much. I can start to move off of the fiat and help people who don't have money like I used to not have, and then help them earn a profession and learn, and then from that path have people they can plug into to become a master, to master whatever life skill they're passionate about. Which is what I'm dedicating the rest of my life to, is guiding people to their purpose, and when they're clear on their purpose, have a place where they can go learn and do that thing they love to do. Earning abundance doing what we love to do. We never work again in our life. We're just playing in our passion game. And should that passion game earn us a home with food and water and love, well, then we've birthed paradise on earth. We're walking in paradise, every one of us.
Mm-hmm.
Huh. Yeah.
Let it land. Let that land, ladies and gentlemen.
Yeah.
Wow, what a journey, man.
Hmm.
You know, your father gave you the only gift, you said, that physically that he gave you was his tool.
Yeah.
Tools. And then it occurred to me as you were speaking that now you're giving away your tools. You almost said exactly that, giving away these tools to help people. So the metaphor of the toolbox is really
The toolbox.
present.
And by not giving me anything except for a toolbox and teaching me how to use the tools, later on, he helped me earn other tools for my career. He never gave me anything. And in those times, I was like, you came into my life late. I only met you. I'm 14, 15 years old. And you never gave me any, in the back subconscious, you never gave me anything. But okay, it was like this business arrangement. And if I was going to college, the rent was only $100. And if I wasn't going to college, the rent was $300 for the room. And I was like, okay, all right. I had a little bit of resistance. However, that was just the way that it was. And I rolled with it. And I see now that he never gave me anything. He showed me how to earn anything and everything I desire. He gave me the biggest gift that we can ever give the next generation or our apprentices, you know, or whether they be children or like an actual apprentice, which is what we are for our parents. That's the lost, that's one of the lost energy codes. It's like we are apprentices for our parents to look at the things that we align in them and learn those codes, and then also learn what's not us. Thank you, thank you, thank you. Okay, this is a line, and get that, and then go on our journey to be apprentices to learn from others. And it's lost. Mentor and apprentice model in a village is what has villages thrive. If you lose the bricklayer, the bread baker, the cake maker, the wagon wheel maker, their apprentice steps into that role. It's a celebration that there's a new person stepping into the role, and we thank the time and energy of the one who held it down for however long they did. And you got some people see it, and it's lost. Technology is at the fingertips. Parents who came from the war were spoiled and or given things and or didn't have things, so they're spoiling their kids. We meet a lot of people who things were given to easily, and being willing to earn it is kind of a lost. It's a little bit lost. Not completely. It's a conversation to keep speaking into. Being an apprentice for somebody and dedicating a year of your life to someone who can teach you that thing, whatever that is.
You know, the word that comes to me, brother, is resilience. And it's remarkable, to say the least. I find your level of resilience to take what others might make resentment, a world that's against them, and your ability to look at, be with, forgive, and alchemize all of these learning opportunities. That's like I said, at very least remarkable. Your resilience, what I see to be your resilience, and your open heart as well.
Yeah. And you know what came to me was I started to give these retreats. I was going to Guatemala. I was doing some things in California. And the outcome, and at the same time, I was running my businesses, and I had started a new business with virtual callers and training single moms and dads how to be effective on the phone, working from home. And they could actually make phone calls, connect, and schedule appointments and earn income from home and still take care of their family, and not have to drive and spend 2 hours, 3 hours in traffic each day. And I wrote a business plan this day. I had a really successful income check coming in from a closing. And all this happened while I was on vacation in Australia with two of my amazing mates. We were in Cairns, Australia. And I'm sitting on the beach, and I had my biggest income check come in that I've ever made. And I channeled this business plan, and I checked the boxes, and spirit just showed that's a win. And I'm at a super high vibe creation space, and I'm on vacation with 2 amazing mates. And then I had a call with somebody who came to one of my retreats, and they were giving me an update of their life and things that have unfolded from their life since forgiving. It was, let me see what I could share. It was a woman who had forgiven her father, who was not in communication for over 10 years, and had written that area of life out, that nope, I'm not even talking to the masculine side of my family. And what I know from my experience is that when a young woman is not in communication and in harmony with the masculine side of her family, it's going to have an impact on what she's going to create for a family of her own and her relationship with a man that she gets close to. Not good or bad conversation, it's just going to have an impact, in my experience. Now, that being said, talking with her and learning that she's created an amazing friendship, and that they have a family reunion vacation plan to go connect in with the masculine side of her family, and learning about what she got, and learning about the impact that the shift from the practices we did together has, how it's unfolding in her life in the now, like what was taking place, the outcome. I was so lit up, so inspired in the conversation. My heart was beating, so connected, and just knew that this is what I'm meant to be doing, because this is all that mattered. And in that same window, the income check that came in, the business plan, that was all flowing, and it was like checking boxes. It was just checking boxes. It had no heart, passion, impact on me.
Mm.
And that's how I knew that that started the shift. That day, that week started the shift of me really realizing what my purpose was, and to be doing things that were aligned with my purpose. The feeling you get when you're walking your purpose. That's when the shift took place.
Mm.
Yeah.
Well, I'm happy you're bringing it back to forgiveness, because I want to talk to you more about exactly that. I don't find forgiveness, to use that word, even in the kind of work that I do, it's a smaller percent of people, I find, that choose to use the word forgiveness. And of course, it is to some degree rooted in different Christian traditions. And I think that has a small amount to do with why it resonated with me. But I got into this process. I just want to give some background before going more into it, because this is a synchronicity that I found with you weeks ago when we started talking about creating together and things like this, which is I was introduced to a practice called compassionate self-forgiveness through this program that I did in spiritual psychology. And I was so mind blown by it. And it's also very present in a text called A Course in Miracles, this element of forgiving, and forgiveness in a way that doesn't have anything to do with another person or the outside world. It has everything to do with, like, just to give an example, I compassionately forgive myself for buying into the misperception that I am separate from you. And there's a whole like, I compassionately forgive myself for buying into the projection. For it's a way where I can take radical ownership and be forgiving my own misperceptions instead of forgiving, because sometimes forgiveness is riddled with this: someone else did something wrong, and since they did something wrong, then I've got to forgive them. And it's this really just another way of righteousness chalked up to forgiveness. But that's not, to me, true forgiveness. True forgiveness is radical ownership of, I forgive myself for buying into a misperception, a misidentification, which by the way, that's the true root word of sin, which is just to miss the mark. It's just I missed the mark. It doesn't insinuate guilt or shame or blame. It's just a misstep. It's just taking one of those tools in that tool belt and using it for the incorrect thing. Okay, well, all right, well, that's all right. It's okay. Anyway, all of this to say, man, I've been mind blown when I hear you talk about forgiveness, and I'm wondering if your path in forgiveness has anything to do with A Course in Miracles, or if this is just something that kind of intuitively you found yourself doing forgiveness work, because it's a particular thing, and it's not everyone's cup of tea. So I'm wondering, like,
Yeah.
what is your path into the forgiveness work, and really drilling into that word itself, like what that means to you and how that arose as part of the path.
Yeah. You know, I haven't read the Course in Miracles. However, it's come up a couple of times with some good quotes. So I know there's some good stuff in there, and it'll feel like, from what I've heard, it'll feel like if that person came to one of my retreats, or I was to come and sit down in one of their offerings, that it would feel at home. We'd be in the same conversation. That's what I'm hearing, is we're in the same vibration.
I just add one thing to that, man, because the
Yeah, yeah,
Course literally says, and again, this blows my mind because I've heard you say it twice now, and you said it in this conversation as well. All life is a curriculum to remove the blocks between me and love. So, and that's forgiveness. That's another. And I'm just like, that's exactly what this dude's saying. Are you, so it's like the heart of it is clearly alive inside you, even without having ever touched,
yeah.
associated with that. So,
Yeah, yeah. Wow. So the path started with me subconsciously wondering why I'm so self-expressed, lit up, happy-go-lucky, and excited about life. And then something can happen. I hold a grudge. I'm angry. When I was younger, as a younger masculine, I would fight a lot. And I also grew up in towns where, just some presence is like, the way my life was is we grew up sometimes and there was fighting in the house, unhealthy energies. There was I'll just leave unhealthy energies and aggressive fighting and energy in the house all the time.
physical fighting, I imagine here.
Yeah, yeah, yes. And in living in ghettos, sometimes you turn a corner and there's 2 or 3 guys that are jealous or angry of somebody in their life, and they like to take it out on you.
Yeah.
So you could turn a corner and there's 3 guys that want to fight, and the next thing you know, they're throwing punches at you. That's the way my life would go. And I've probably been in over, I would say, 100 fights outside of the boxing ring. Not have chosen to be in them. It's just occurring.
Yeah. Wow.
And that's a product of living in neighborhoods where masculine's not taught how to be with these certain emotions, and it comes out however they saw it coming out.
Mm-hmm.
So with that, forgiveness has a lot of layers. And what I got was, I'm super happy when I choose to be me, higher self. What I didn't know then is that when this anger would come out, that I was still angry at a certain type of masculine, or a feminine, or a story that I made up about the feminine or the masculine, or certain people would remind me of people of my life. Mm-hmm. That the spirit was pulled back into the body, and I was now these emotions that I stored when I created a story or had an experience. We create, Scientology calls it engrams. Certain other works call it stories. When and the root is our fight or flight mechanism that's inside of our cells. It's the only program our cells override everything else. Fight or flight. It's fight or flight. And we record needed information to protect us and survive. The cells are programmed to survive.
Yeah.
So everything in us is to survive. So we're doing these things subconsciously because we think we have to do it to survive, unless we become aware of what we're doing and we realize that it's our fight or flight mechanism programming us and playing out a movie. Because believe it or not, there's not very many dinosaurs coming around chewing our heads off. So we program a lot of made up stories that are real for us in the moment and very unreal and have left reality 99.5% of the time.
Which
We're not under attack.
Caveat to that, I'll see if you agree with this. A
Yeah.
metaphorical dinosaur could be is if I said something that you didn't like. If I made a
Yeah.
certain, the body could then go into, oh no, like dinosaur, thinking that this is a threat that once was an actual dinosaur, but it's not an actual threat. But since there's trauma associated with the past time when mom or dad or whoever made this face at me and said, I'm gonna, then your body, if you were in a trauma response, could be responding like my words are a dinosaur, even though they're not, obviously.
100%. Let's keep it practical for people like tuning into that.
Yeah.
You're a pretty big, healthy masculine. If you were like, dude, you know what, Merlin? I'm not happy with you. And when I get there, we're going to have a one-on-one talk. Me and you need to talk because there's something we need to work out. And I felt aggressive energy. I could revert that back to people who said, I could think of 20 different times. After school, me and you are going we're going to meet outside the fence. After school, I want to meet you at that place. There's always these places to meet to work out the kinks, the fighting ground places where you might not get caught. In other words,
right.
You better meet me there, or I'm gonna come find you. Okay, then I would go into fight or flight, and I'd be preparing, and I'd be thinking, and I'm like, okay, I better stretch out, and I better have a big stick nearby just in case, because he's a pretty big guy. I might need to take him, and I'd be in my fight mode.
Right.
Because it wouldn't be my higher self saying, okay, well, brother Chris wants to have a conversation. I want to listen to everything he has to say, because something I said or did had an impact on him, and I want to know what that is, so our energies can weave back into harmony.
It's a very different conversation than going for the stick.
That's higher self. Now, pulled into the body, fight or flight. The movie was recorded that we're going to meet after school, and we're going to meet at this place. Me and you are going to fight. And those emotions that go with thinking all day, I'm going to meet Chris. We're going to do this. We're going to fight. I know I can take him. I know I can take him. I got these moves. Okay, I'm planning it all out. I'm in fight mode for how to survive. That's the movie. That's the play button that plays out, and we feel the same emotions in our heart. We might even feel in our shoulder after, if we've gotten into a lot of fights, that there's a certain place where the body's physiological being will be recorded into a story, an engram, and something activates it that can get hit play. And now we're inside of that. And that's who we are. We're no longer higher self. We are that identity with that story. And we're reenacting it, feeling it, the whole physiological experience. And this was what was taking place in my life. And this is what takes place in a lot of people's lives.
And then it just keeps playing over and over again, because that's what you're used to doing to survive. And that when that movie comes up, like, I got to play this part.
I got to play this part. I know how to survive this thing.
And it might have started with you seeing it out there with someone else, and you're like, oh, well, that's what I got to do if I'm in that situation in order for me to survive. And then it just starts proliferating.
Exactly. Yeah, which is usually where we take on our first characteristic. We look at, most of us had a mother and father around for some of our life. And we look at them as our first guides, and we choose which is the energy that we feel survives these scenarios in life. We implement that, and that's who we choose to be as an identity. And just to be aware of it, that awareness allows us to observe and say, okay, this is why I do that. I'm not aligning with that anymore. That pureness, that vulnerability, that we're so real and so pure and vulnerable with ourselves, or why we're doing what we're doing and where it came from, allows us to observe and make a choice from the now, if that's how we're going to do it, if that's who we're going to be. And it takes really being responsible. That was the path of forgiveness. So going from now to then, how to get to that point of being able to observe, let things go. I learned how to forgive and it was 10, 12 years ago, 12, 13 years ago, 33 years old. And when I learned to forgive, I let go of all grudges of mom, both dads, a past lover. I let go of everything. And when I forgave, I knew I had forgiven because there was nothing but love between me and them. I could talk to them differently. They could express what was there. And I was like, yeah, I totally get that I was being out of line. Yeah, I see that now. My perspective had changed. I was able to be my spirit. I didn't know this then. I'm going back to the conversation. What I got was that my body was no longer controlling through the emotions.
Mm-hmm.
I had forgiven and I let go of what was there. I didn't forget. That's a common collapse between people like forgiving. They think that they have to forget what took place. Forgiveness, like you said, is for us. It's for us to let go of that energy that no longer serves and bring compassion and love back in. Which means we can also choose to love somebody from a distance. Sometimes we can forgive and love somebody and we might not want to spend time with them other than having a meal with them once a year. It may not be an energetic fit to have them in our boat throughout our whole life.
For sure.
And we can forgive for ourselves so that we can come back to love and we can be our higher self, observing the rest of the areas of life. So what I got from forgiveness was I was able to observe and tune back into my higher self, which is happy-go-lucky, connect, love to meet other spirits and say, hi, what are you up to? What's your purpose? What kind of games do you like to play? And be in that fun-loving way. And yeah, that was the forgiveness path. It was to unlock full self-expression was the original course. How can I be more self-expressed more of the time was the original course. And it was the shedding and the letting go of the anger that has been stored up that hadn't been forgiven that gave me access to be my true self. And then I learned later that forgiveness wasn't enough. Forgiveness was the starting point. And where a lot of technologies and a lot of teachers that I don't hear teach and put in was the piece around recreating those people in those moments that the forgiveness was needed to be given. You and I have something takes place and it's a month before we work it out and fully forgive. I might have put meaning and energetic boundaries in who you are for me. I forgive you. Okay, we're good. And then what would take place is like, as soon as you did something that would remotely remind me of that thing, it's like, well, there you go again. This is why I put the boundaries up. You can never be my best friend. You can only be this kind of person in my life. And whatever boundaries from that anger and the stories that we made up, while in angry with the person, because those stories get stored at a heightened sexual energy, a heightened pain, or heightened pleasure. Super heightened pain or pleasure is what stores those memories energetically. Some of them could have come when we were in the womb dealing with whatever our moms were dealing with. If there was stuff going on there, that could have an impact on us. And throughout this life, heavy pain, heavy energies, heightened state of energies, to survive it in the future, the cells program, okay, when this happens, this is what we'll do. And we don't realize that we're storing a code for how we're going to deal with it for our life. So it took recreating those people and ourselves, if it's us that we're forgiving, or if it's them, that we're actually recreating them for who they are, so that we know and they know who they are for us. Right? Hey, Chris, you're not one of the guys that would want to attack or fight me from my school or my childhood past. You're my soul brother who had something on his heart that wanted to share with me. I started putting meaning behind it, that you had other intentions in the background. You had other things that you wanted to accomplish and that you wanted to have aggressive conversations with me. And that's not who you are. That's not who I am. You wanted to have a conversation with me to put love back in. And there was just something in the space that we could move out so nothing but love was present. And And that's who you are. You're an angel of light, and you're a guide to masculine to come back to a heart space, no matter how powerful they are, that they never use force to get their way, that they're using their power, which is vulnerability, love, and compassion, and gentleness. And that's who you are. And that's who I see you as. And that's who I am, because I wouldn't be able to see you unless I was you. So thank you for holding that down.
Thank you for seeing yourself in me.
Yeah,
Yeah, I'm wearing this. I wore this necklace for this conversation because I felt like this is such a Merlin kind of necklace.
yeah, that's awesome.
Something like this.
That's amazing. Yeah. Is that one of those pine slices of pine?
There's certain kinds of metals in it, kind of
Okay.
like frozen in this, whatever this was dipped in, and there's a piece of copper in there, and then I think that's
Ooh.
called Merkaba, this
Yeah.
geometric pattern on it. And
Yeah.
Zlodka gave it to me as a gift just like 2 weeks ago.
Actually, let me see the design. I think that's Metatron's cube.
Metatron's cube, that's right. You're right.
And that might be a slice of pine and then fossilized inside of a resin.
With that little piece.
No, the edges. Is the edges wood? Is the
No,
actual piece,
no.
or is it all a resin? Okay.
It's all whatever this material
Yeah.
is. And that's
Amazing.
for sure a piece of copper.
That's awesome.
Yeah. Anyway, yeah, I think there's a holographic nature to this. You know, if you spot it, you got it. If I can see it in me, then I'll be able to. Well, here, this is interesting too.
And before we go, do you see like forgiveness is one thing, and the recreating the humans or ourself was the missing piece to guiding people to their purpose for me. I can guide people to forgiveness, get people fully activated in their purpose, but yet they were being pulled back into the body because these stories were still running and they would be activated. So we have to take responsibility as a distinction that we made this stuff up. I made stuff about you up. I made stuff about myself. I made stuff about the world. We take full responsibility for everything that we made up, and only from that space, and then recreate people who we made things up about. And this is a lifestyle. This is not something you do in a retreat. This is like, if I make up something about you or someone else, I'm reaching out to them to get it complete. I'm not going to cast negative spells about somebody, and it will stop my self-expression if I'm holding on to anything. Forgiveness and then recreation. And recreation took being responsible for everything we created so that we can recreate it. And when we can recreate the people in our life, like I just did you, or imagine doing that with someone who you just had anger with, if someone's listening, the person that you comes to mind that you're holding something on to, that's the person to forgive. Take full responsibility, not some, full responsibility for what you put in, what you made up, and then recreate who they are. Only then is walking the path of our purpose available in my experience. Otherwise, we're walking this path, we're on our stage path, we're flying with the fairies, we're flying around with Peter Pan, we're inside of our dreams, something happens. Ooh, I'm back. Something happens and we're pulled back into our body with some kind of meaning and expression and something there. Yeah.
So the way I relate to what you're saying, and let me know if this feels like it's an accurate representation in my own way of what this recreating business is. I think of addiction, and it's said sometimes that the easiest way to cure an addiction is to switch the addiction. So, and what I mean by that is there used to be this familiar pattern that I would go into when X, Y, or Z happens to me. Whereas when I've recreated it, I've filled the space. It's almost like this happens, and then a space is created. And within that space, now it's like I was making a bet and my chips were in, but it wasn't even a good bet, and it wasn't even a game that I wanted to be playing. But now I've taken the chips back, and there's no chips out there to play the game. Now I got to figure out what kind of chips I want to put in to the game, and I got to decide who I'm playing with. Who's this game being played with? And to me, that's the process of recreating, or just to use a different metaphor for this, again, as a Course in Miracles says, and I'm not like a Course in Miracles only. My religion is truth. I'm interested in truth, love, and humor. That's these are the three pillars of my religion: truth, love, and humor. And whatever systems are going to help me discover that. A lot of it happens around this non-duality thing or discovery of our true self. So I'm just doing that because I'm referencing A Course in Miracles a lot, but it's very potent when it comes to teachings of love, compassion, and forgiveness. Like that's its emphasis. And it says, until we can see the face of the risen Christ in all beings, not in ourselves. I mean, you're sure in ourselves, but our job is actually to see it in all living human beings. Until we see that, our work is not complete. So when I look at that teaching, I'm like, all right, I'm still enrolled because I'm not there. You know, I'm not I'm always seeing the risen. If my fiance says something, I'm all of a sudden I go into a thing or family member or a friend, you know, I react. It's getting less and less. At least that's the narrative I'm telling myself. And I'm going back to the training ground and whenever I get one of those moments, I'm like, it'll rock my world for a moment, but I'll be like, okay, here's the lesson. Like the lesson is this relationship and how I'm relating to this, and kind of feels impossible to look away or to try and just shove that in a corner. Be like, no, it's really like, I'm like, I'm doing that. I'm creating that. So I got to go through this that that we're talking about here, which is forgiveness and recreating.
Yeah. And I wasn't able to tap into the ability. So here's a metaphor I like to look at, is that the way that I've been able to access it is through shamanic tools and deep dive abilities to bring the body to the heightened. There's a few rituals we do that brings the body to that heightened sense of emotion, a similar physiological experience of when the story was programmed. And then through meditation, guide the spirit back to that time, rewrite those codes, rewrite the story, almost like handing somebody an eraser, showing them the movie of their life, pinpointing the areas that made certain detours that might not be serving them now, sending them back with an eraser to erase the story that they wrote, rewrite what they truly believe, their truth, love. What was your religion? Truth, love,
humor,
fun.
humor. Fun. Sure.
Put in truth, love, and fun. Mine's fun. You said humor. That's what. Truth, love, and fun. And write the story from truth, love, or fun from this self. Now how that plays out in the now, when those things happen, it's like, okay. We've rewritten the story so that it plays out differently in the now.
Mm.
And it took me, and it's taken me with others to be able to go back there and rewrite those stories so that in the now it plays out differently. And yeah, and that's what's made it available for me, and that's how it made it available for others. Some of the benefits of some of the younger generations, like sometimes I do work with people who are 20, 21 years old, and it's like the story happened 5 years ago, and they're like, wow, okay, I made a lot of that up. Yeah, that doesn't even make sense. I'm gonna call my mom and say, I'm sorry. I'm gonna call this person. That didn't even make sense. I don't know why I went there. And it's like, it's gone. It's gone.
Yeah.
And then you got people who are 45 years old, they're holding on to stuff for 30 years, and it's engraved in, and they're like, okay, well, I'm letting it go. And so we get to go there, rewrite, delete program, put in a new one from love, fun, and truth, and see how that plays out. And that's what shifts things. That's the shift. That's the, yeah. And through meditation, right? Because we're talking about a silent retreat. What I've learned is this: a lot of people enter the spiritual path, including myself, of like learning and discovering and seeking, right? In Buddhism, they teach that seeking is a lower vibration than being. Once we've achieved something, all there is to do is to be it. If we want love, just be love. If we want compassion, be compassionate to people. All there is to do is to be that thing we want in our life and give it away more and more. And the laws of karma, that's how it will be coming back. Really simple. And there's a lot of things that we can rewrite codes and forgive and let go, and stories about ourselves and others to let go. And there's some stuff that is just there and it's programmed deep, and it could be from a past life. We don't always have to figure it all out. Buddhism has a scripture that says, when at rest, rest all thoughts. When in action, perfect those actions. Such that if we don't have it all figured out, mastering resting the mind and shutting the mind off, like we do in a meditation, such that when something's coming up, we've mastered shutting the mind off. A story's coming on and we're getting ready to feel a certain way. Shut the mind off, let that go, be present, be love. We can choose who we be with the most incredible stories or emotions or anything going on in our life by practicing a way of being. Could be 2 or 3 words, a mantra, a self mantra. Calm, listening from love. Hi, I'm calm. Who I am is a way of being, this human being, translating the spirit's message and from myself and translating the spirit message from you. Anybody that's being with us is calm and listening from love. And we can reprogram that as a way of being, that no matter what takes place in our life, we don't have to have figured it all out. We only have to get that we are responsible to choose who we be in those moments that matter. And no matter what's taking place, if our promise, this is where walking a walk of being our word really comes into play. This practice is only available when we say something and it lands. When we say we're going to do something and we do it just because we said we would. When we give our word to something and our word matters, the universe listens to that. Only when our word matters to ourselves does the universe take our word serious. When we give our word to something and it lands, that's when our magic spells kick in, such that we can create who we be in those moments. In the instant of anger or sadness or anything, who I am as a way of being is, and create our own mantra and put it on the wall, put it in the bathroom, speak it into existence daily, practice it until it becomes a way of being. Then that's just who we are. So there was 2 different sides of forgiveness: rewriting the code so that they disappear, and the stuff that's still there, accept it. That's what happens. And when this happens, this is who I be.
I don't know if you remember, I sent you the eulogy for my uncle, but at one point I brought this very thing up, which is, I said, thank you, Uncle Jim, for reminding us that we don't have to understand anything in order to love.
Yeah.
And I've got a strong mind. So I've tried to figure things out, really like get into psychoanalyzing and why is it this? Was it a past life? Was it this? Was it that? Well, maybe it was that one time when that thing happened, and that's why I got a ball in my. It's like when it hits, there's just the relief. Literally, like it feels like a letting go. I have no other way to describe it than a letting go of an attachment. None of that actually matters for me, and I can just be love, and that can exist or not exist, and I can make sense of it or not make sense of it, and I can just be love.
It's an interesting dynamic, because look at the smile on your face. You're probably visualizing a time where you weren't loved, and then you got that all you got to do is be love, and it was so easy when you just chose love.
Fucking simple. Like, oh my God.
And then it's really the path of least resistance. That's why it's the highest vibration. It's the path of least resistance. It up spirals the spirit, and we make it quite a bit more complicated than it needs to be And that's another conversation is, and here's the thing is you ask somebody who's like really triggered about you or they're holding on to something, ask them if they're making you be somebody from their life that they haven't forgiven or let go. And if they're really quick to answer, no, I don't, you don't remind me of anybody in my life. If they're really quick to answer, there's a wall there. And they're not willing to look over it. We know when someone's resisting because they build a wall up. When you ask a question, you're feeling something. They don't even consider it or think about it. Like, right away at the wall, there's something there.
And it's all about the quality of how I'm asking that. Like if I'm asking that from just a righteous, like with one very significant person in my life, we have had. I'm gonna speak this into the past because it is mostly in the past. This hasn't happened for a while, but sometimes we'll be having let's say a heated conversation, and one of us will be like, "Are you in your heart right now?" Yeah, but are you in your heart right now? And it's just like there's a totally different vibe if I'm like, "Hey, are you? I just want to invite a moment for you to breathe in and invite you to be in your heart. If we're gonna keep communicating, which is very different than, are you? Am I reminding you of someone from your past that you haven't forgiven? You know, same words, but the whole feeling of, is it coming from the fight or is it coming from the love, is really what drives that ship, at least for me. And it's humorous looking back on it in the moments when I'm like, are you in your heart right now? And then the other person will say, yeah, well, are you in your heart right now? It's like, oh boy, okay.
Yeah, you're so right. And that's the lifelong journey of practicing this stuff. And even sharing a story now is like reminding me who to be. And that's why we keep these practices in and create accountability around us, right? A big thing about my practices that I've taken on and what makes me who I am is I've been a request to be held accountable by the people in my life that will kick my ass. Like actually hold me accountable that I'm being, if you see my integrity out or me not being my word, I want to know. Because it's keeping these practices alive in those moments that matter, like you're talking about. You got someone who you really care about, you really love, and they're in an emotion. They're not even themselves. They're not their true self. They're living a story and inside of a reaction. And how we choose to bring love to the way who we're being, those are the moments that matter. And this is why we take on these practices, so that in those moments that matter, we can be our higher self. One of my coaches and guides many years back taught me, and it's probably time for me to stick this sticker back up. I had it on my computer. People don't listen to what you're saying. They're listening for who you're being. And that really resonates. And I didn't own it then. It was like a bumper sticker. I was like, yeah, that sounds really great. I'll just be nice. And now I ask, why did I say that? Who am I being right now? And constantly come from that purity and check in. Even in this conversation, it was like, am I being someone that's bragging about, like, I don't like to share about my abundance. Like, am I bragging about? And it's like, no, this is a pure channel. This is where I earned this life. Nobody gave it to me. This is the share. And I've been checking in. Who am I being as I share and I speak? And where is it coming from? What's the intention behind it? And that's this new course that I'm at. Like in my life, it's like such a pure level, especially, you know, being a kind king on the planet with not the most amount of story. Story is I didn't have the best role models as masculine. Fact is I had amazing models that showed me who to be and equally who not to be.
Incredible.
Yeah. Yeah, really tuning in. Who am I being? Why did I say that? What is the true intention? Is there any stickiness? Do I have anything else? Don't look at that. That's not from a pure place, right? The little things, like as a masculine, like a woman walks by, she's got nice big curves. Are we making eye contact or are we thinking about something else? How pure is our thoughts? How pure is our energy? The little things. And it's those little things that makes who we are when no one's looking. It's like, who are we when no one's looking? And only we know who we're being for ourselves in the world. And that's what makes that strongest character. I feel like, for me, that's what's made the strongest character imprint on me, is like, who am I when no one's looking? Yeah.
Amen to that, brother. Well, first, I just want to say, I want to thank you, because in our relationship, since the moment when I came to your place there for the cacao ceremony with Sladka, up till now, I've looked to you as an inspiration in many ways, and as a leader, and as a dude who I'm like, that's some healthy masculinity. I want more of that in life. And so yeah, I want to share my appreciation for who you are being.
Thank you for seeing yourself in my mirror.
I guess I'm just one big narcissist, aren't I? Seeing myself all over. It's a non-duality. We're all the same being joke.
Yeah.
Anyway, the other thing that I want to see if you're game for, two more things really, is I'd like to hear about, and also for those listening, if they're curious, to join in on some of the creations that you're doing. If you want to share anything about upcoming events, the Find Your Why retreat that you have, and we can do this in whatever order you want, and then get a taste, so if there's like a little guided meditation or little taste of some of what we've talked about that you felt called to offer for those that tune into this, we can do that.
Okay. So, okay, I'll take that on. So I'm going to give a short offering of, like, if you resonate with where I'm at in my life, and I'm the kind of person you feel can make a difference for you, I do offer some one-on-one guidance connection calls. In January 13th through 20th, we have a silent retreat to really go into the depths of the mind and free and liberating the mind and giving clarity. The Dharma offering, March 17th through the 28th of March. March 17th to the 28th of March is the Find Your Why retreat. And I'll put the link, down below in the place that we share this. And that's where everything that you've heard in me and this, I bring to that 12-day experience, so that people can have what they are meant to get from that experience. And it's the 12 years of my life inside of 12 days experience. And that's my Dharma path. And what I will share is, if you want to close your eyes and just kind of visualize what that would look like. To Find Your Why journey, people come in and connect with their soul family. People who are on the path of forgiveness, letting go, reconnecting to their inner child, reconnecting to their purpose, and learning the tools to have their purpose fulfilled in this life. We go through an amazing experience of forgiveness, make a song, connect to music, fire ceremonies, cacao ceremonies, a full energy release, a mind fire energy release, letting go of all the past, a full reset to nothing, then playing as children, learning each other newly from that creation of that child, that purity, learning each other's purpose. And we create games together, all with our soul family inside of a 12-day container to really get to know one another. Whatever that passion game is, if it's a family, if it's a new enterprise, if it's a business, a career change, eco-village, whatever that is, that's the passion games we create. And we guide people to have a written manifesto for where they're going to be 3 years, 2 years, 1 year from now, and leaving the retreat, step by step how to get there. It's a beautiful experience, and what lights me up to offer it is seeing the eyes of the people around that circle at the closing circle, sharing who they were coming in and who they are leaving makes everything worth it. And that's the opportunity to join the Find Your Why journey, and being in that closing circle with all the people we started the journey with, so lit up and inspired about their passion games in life. They can't wait to leave the retreat and start playing in life. And that's why I do it. My purpose is to serve God and guide people to their purpose. That's what I live for, and that's what I'm dedicating the rest of my life for. And this is a invitation for anybody who feels called to that, to start to follow your spirit. If your spirit showed you there when you heard of this, or at any given time showed you at a transformational retreat experience with me flying the ship, if your spirit shows you there, that's heaven yes energy. Invitation is to start following spirit and let spirit guide you more and more. And that's how we walk a path of our purpose. Thank you for listening. Thank you for tuning into this call. Thank you for tuning into yourself. Whatever came up, I hope that you can share these gifts with others, and whatever came up for your life. We can open our eyes when we feel called.
You did the 2-in-1 there. Thank you, brother.
Thank you. Thank you, man. Thank you for being such an amazing listener. Thank you for your time. Thank you for allowing me to go back to these memories that I have, and why I'm where I am, why I'm who I am, and where I'm at in life. And it's been a beautiful soul journey, just revisiting. So thank you.
It's a pleasure. So, as you said, I'll share this with all links in the description. And my last question for you: imagine you have a button in front of you, and when you press that button, this button has the power to deliver an experience to every single human being all across the planet for 60 seconds. So you press that button and everyone has whatever experience you want them to have. What, or would you choose to click that button? And if you would choose, what would that experience be?
Let me know when you hit play.
You're hitting the button.
I'm hitting the button?
You're hitting the button.
Okay. This experience that everyone on the planet is going to experience is now. And they felt this desire to come closer to somebody in their life, somebody who they really, really have been pushing away, and they don't know why. And then they realize it's because they really love that person. And the reason why they feel the way they do is because they have so much love for that person, and they haven't had the bravery or the words to express it or share it, or willingness to be vulnerable, or knew that they could be vulnerable. And now this button's playing out, and it's telling us all, just be vulnerable and tell that person how much we love them and look up to them. And everybody right now has the experience of reaching out to that person that they haven't spoken to. They haven't expressed their love, their gratitude, or I'm sorry, or please forgive me. And they have the experience of reaching out to that person and saying, I'm sorry, please forgive me, I love you, I thank you. And that person responds back, I've been waiting for you to reach out, and I didn't know what to say, I didn't know what to do, and I love you too. I forgive you, I'm sorry, thank you.
Sounds like a more peaceful, beautiful world to me.
Aho.
You heard it first. Aho. Thank you, brother.
Thank you, brother.
See you
We'll be
later.
talking soon. I look forward to a hug in person soon. Probably two. It's been a while, so I'll probably request two if that's all right.
You can have as many hugs as you like.
All right. All
Peace,
right,
everyone.
brother. Take care.